Autojektor was a device worthy of nightmares.
It's the old-timey predecessor to a heart and lung machine, and was quite revolutionary for the time, although it created mixed results. Invented by Dr. Sergei Brukhonenko and his associate Boris Levinskovsky, who preceded Vladimir Demikhov's work, the contraption pumped the heart and lung to stimulate it and help them beat or operate as if they were working in their own. This machine helped to inform early operations on heart valves. But it was bulky and primitive. An MIT student newspaper described it as a queer-looking affair made of glass and rubber tubing. The rubber tubes would be plugged into the severed head, allowing for a mixture of blood and oxygen to be pumped into it. However, the device wasn't quite perfect. It was prone to failure because it wasn't hermetically sealed.
Vladimir Demikhov created dog chimeras.
Vladimir Demikhov was another Soviet scientist and a pioneer in organ transplant surgery, who was quite skilled at transplanting hearts, lungs, and livers. But he also had an obsession with performing head transplants and made it his #1 goal. He performed his first with 2 dogs, one larger one for the body, and one smaller one just above the neck. The 2 dogs were attached to each other via the larger one's neck and had motor functions separate from each other. Basically, the merge had created 1.5 dogs, which he called chimeras. They could eat, drink, and bark independently of each other. Unfortunately, the dogs died about 4 days after their procedure. While some may consider this a horror story, it cannot be denied that Demikhov's work greatly informed organ transplant research.
Another Soviet scientist had attempted to revive a dead man's heart in the 1920s.
Around the same time Brukhonenko was starting his experimenting with dog heads, Alexei Kulievko wanted to experiment with actual adult humans. They had a patient who had died from surgical complications not more than 24 hours prior, and so had the opportunity to try a new experiment. He and his staff successfully restarted his heart for 20 minutes using a solution designed by Frank Spiller-Locke, a solution he used more than 20 years earlier to restart a dead baby's heart. The man's revival was fraught with violent shaking and choking sounds enough to terrify his assistants and make them run out of the operating room. U.S. magazine Time even reported that vague reports have been reaching the U.S. that Russian scientists have revivified corpses.
Experiments in the revival of organisms had been prolific in the Soviet Union in the 1900s.
1940 film showed experiments where dead hearts and dog heads could be brought back to life, using Brukhonenko's research and Autojektor to prove it. It was released as a joint scientific find by the United States and the USSR in the name of mutual friendship. After all, what could scare your enemy more than the very notion of their soldiers coming back from the dead, and possibly really hungry for brains, too? While some contend that the video is fake, there is no evidence of this claim.
In 1939, a Soviet scientist made a severed dog's head move.
And of course, the scientist filmed it, the footage of which is eerily fascinating and a tad gruesome. But the head not only moved, it also apparently responded to external stimuli. The scientist's name was Sergei Sergeyevich Brukhonenko, but he wasn't just some quack. He was a leading researcher at the Research Institute of Experimental Surgery and helped pioneer open-heart surgery. He used a device he created, which he called an Autojektor, which allowed the severed head to remain alive for another 100 minutes. Being a man of science, this wasn't the first severed dog's head he attempted this experiment on. It is said that he did this on hundreds of dogs.
Escaping death through these experiments is only possible within a 4-hour window.
Scientists at the Safar Center found that dogs that were dead for more than a couple of hours couldn't be resuscitated, no matter what they tried. However, adding the oxygen and glucose to the cold saline solution did give them an extra hour to that limit. After some time of experimentation, they increased that to 4 hours. In pushing the boundaries of those limits, various life-saving procedures could be applied in the event of an emergency. Imagine a soldier that has been torn apart by an explosion. They could be saved if death could be delayed long enough to put them back together.
The resurrection led to serious damage in some of the dogs.
After reviving the dogs by giving them warm blood transfusions and a gently stimulating electric shock, all the dogs survived, but 4 of the 14 dogs showed serious signs of neurological damage thanks to the process. 3 of the dogs had multiple organ failures, which meant they needed mechanical assistance to continue living. Even though most of the dogs came out relatively normal, having 28% of your specimens show signs of permanent damage shouldn't be considered a success quite yet.
The zombie dogs were suspended in animation by draining them of their blood.
In 2005, the Safar Center for Resuscitation Research at the University of Pittsburgh was the epicenter of somewhat disturbing experiments on dogs, unofficially nicknamed the Zombie Dog Project. In a process similar to death row prisoners being injected with a lethal cocktail, the blood of living dogs was drawn out and then replaced by a saline solution mixed in with oxygen and glucose. That solution induced cardiac arrest in all of the dogs by inducing extreme hypothermia. The team called it suspended in animation, but when the dogs' hearts and minds stopped working, they could be declared clinically dead. Afterwards, warm blood was pumped back into their bodies in an attempt to revive them.
Hey guys, thank you so much for the support and likes and comments down below, and also thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to see you in the next video. Then take care. Bye.